Welcome back to Slylisto. I am your host Gersh1 and it's Throwback Thursday once again. Today we're going to be reminiscing of all the Cartoon Network cartoons we used to watch back in the 90s. Before there was Adventure Time, Cartoon Network had the most amazing lineup in the 90s. It was my favorite channel to watch for awesome cartoons, and that's because the quality of the cartoons was awesome. My very favorite cartoon has to be Dexter's Laboratory. It was a show about a boy genius who had a secret lab underneath his bookcase, and him and his sister Dee Dee would fight, and every episode some chaotic thing would happen to Dexter's experiments and there would be explosions and awesomeness. My favorite episode has to be when Dexter and his arch nemesis Mandart fought each other, and they just jumped into these super awesome anime looking suits and they fought each other to the very end. It was an awesome episode. I wish I remember what it was called. It was awesome though. The next cartoon in the list is Johnny Bravo. This show was about a macho man with a pompadour who talked like Elvis, and the entire premise of the show was him trying to get at beautiful women, and somehow something would go wrong. It was a very funny show, not one of my favorites, but it was on for a very long time. My absolute favorite thing about this show has to be the intro. Extremely entertaining.
Do the monkey with me! Hello!
Next show on our list is Cow and Chicken. I remember being a little disturbed about this show, and that's because the show itself dealt with a little disturbing topics. I remember that Cow and Chicken were both somehow siblings, and they just went off and went on adventures trying to combat their nemesis, the red guy, who was, I believe, naked, which was kind of strange. Then again, the cow was wearing a tutu, if I remember. It was really weird. The next show on our list is I Am Weasel. This followed two characters. The Weasel, Weasel, who was extremely charming and charismatic and everybody loved, and his counterpart, IR Baboon, who was always trying to be better than the Weasel, but nobody seemed to like him. The red guy also made an appearance in this show, and the humor was much like Cow and Chicken. Kind of disturbing.
Do I look stupid? It says youth right on it!
And then comes the Powerpuff Girls. Everybody remembers the intro bit to this. They remember that Chemical X was the formula, was mixed with sugar, spice, and everything nice to create the Powerpuff Girls. The villains of the Powerpuff Girls are probably my favorite part. Of course, you cannot talk about the Powerpuff Girls without talking about Mojo Jojo.
Hey, you kids, get out of my mouth! It is not made to be played in!
My second favorite show on this list is coming up next. It is Ed, Edd and Eddy. The most amazing show. All it was missing was some type of robotic coolness to it, but I love this show. It followed three boys, Ed, Double D, and Eddie, as they went through their cul-de-sac creating trouble. Ed was the leader, who was a little mischievous. There was Double D, who was the smart one of the group, who could invent cool stuff. And then there was Eddie, who was extremely dumb, but probably one of my favorite characters. It was an awesome show. The one thing I remember about this show is its cool background. Like, it would have the image of, let's say, a picture frame, and the picture frame would be cut out, but the colors would go past the line, which was a cool aesthetic that I clearly remember from this show. The next show on our list is Mike, Lou, and Ong. The plot of this show was following Mike, who applied to be a foreign exchange student and got put down in a deserted island where there was a group of British castaways who just became native. And to be honest, I don't remember too much about this show. It wasn't a regular show that I watched, but I do remember seeing these faces before. And next comes a show that I still watch to this day on Boomerang. Courage the Cowardly Dog! This was a really good show that was really creepy, especially considering that I was in my teens when I saw this. Sometimes I wouldn't even get through an entire show. I would have to change it because it got too disturbing and too creepy. But I always loved the music and the monsters or villains that would come in to fight Courage the Cowardly Dog. Next show is Time Squad. The things I do remember about this show is it followed a robot, a boy, and a man in a superhero costume as they traveled back in time and assisted Earth. They came from a utopia where everything was good and there was no more problems to solve. So they were there solving their problems. Ironically, I remember the ship they were on had a shooting range, a prison, and all this other crazy stuff. I mean, I guess it makes sense that a future civilization would prepare them with that stuff because they knew that problems existed in the past, but I just found that kind of funny. And then there was Whatever Happened to Robot Jones. The best part of this show was the intro.
Robot Jones.
The premise of this show followed a robot, Robot Jones, who went through everyday high school life. He got pimples and did all this crazy stuff with the regular kids. And he was in love with this one girl who had a big ol' brace thingy on her head. It was, yep, that's her. It was pretty fun show. Didn't last very long though, I remember. The final show that I'm going to talk about is Grim and Evil. Now the cool thing about this show is it broke off into two separate shows. Evil con Carne and The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. I love The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Don't remember too much about Evil con Carne, but before then it was Grim and Evil, and this came from a viewer vote. They voted that they should create this small show, this small bit show, into a full-length show, which then split off into two that I mentioned. The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy followed two little kids who enslaved Death, the Grim Reaper, because they won a limbo contest by cheating, but whatever. And it just follows them doing crazy stuff with the Grim Reaper's awesome powers. And I really enjoyed both the two little kids, Billy and Mandy. They were awesome. And Evil con Carne, I vaguely remember. I remember there was a bear with a brain. No, with someone's stomach and a brain in a case, I think it was. It was a trippy show, but it was cool. And that's it for Cartoon Network shows that happened back in the 90s. I hope you guys had fun going down memory lane with me. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this video with your friends that you grew up with. And like always, you can click right here, which is gonna take you to the previous Throwback Thursday, or you can click here and that's gonna take you to a random Slylisto video. I was your host, Gershwan. I had fun reminiscing with you guys. This is Gershwan signing out.